I am fucking speechless. How do I even do this review? Today was the final episode of Eminence and Shadow, and goddamn, it was so fucking goated. Holy fuck. As if the last episode wasn't crazy enough, the episode ended up 10 times harder. I'm so fucking glad there's a season 2 announcement on the way. Of course, I'm gonna start off by talking about the goated god tier rizzed up fight scene that took place. Firstly, the amount of disrespect that Shadow gave to Iris and Beatrix during that fight. Like, we all knew he's OP as shit and how the outcome of the fight would go. But this man Sid took it to the extra and made them take the most humiliating L of their life. The animation for this fight was fucking stellar. Actual cinematography, especially for an almost no-name studio which hasn't really done the most notable projects. The animation director Kazuya Nakanishi is an absolute chad. Him having done the majority of the key animation for this episode. And you know, just carrying this project as a whole, absolute props to him. You really barely see this amount of effort in isekais nowadays. I would have to say my favorite part about the fight was when Sid literally grabbed Beatrix and slammed her to the ground. But taking the extra step to step on her and give them a taste of his goddamn spiritual pressure? That one moment for a second reminded me of Ichigo vs Aizen's final battle. Which in a sense is kinda ironic considering Doam Katsuhata or Per Basshat is voiced by Aizen's VA. Not to say that moment was the highlight of the battle, if there was one part that could top that, it was when Sid baited the fuck out of us with the atomic. Really, for a second, I thought, ain't no way this motherfucker would nuke the capital, killing everyone. Speaking of which, Elixir was really out here practicing when the city was potentially about to be nuked. Had this been a darker anime and Sid wasn't actually playing around. It's like, what the fuck, but at the same time, I gotta respect her for keeping up that grind. And you know, I am constantly switching back and forth with the topics, but going back to what I was saying about Sid completely disrespecting Iris and Beatrix, I don't think he would have gone that hard if it was only Beatrix wanting to challenge him. And the city wouldn't be a mess if Iris hadn't stepped in the fight, so what I'm trying to say is, Iris kinda has to take most of the blame here. And again, if Beatrix had decided to go all out on Sid, which of course she would still lose, but there still would be some kind of chaos in the city going on from their fight. Also, I do have to say, I find Iris to be a bit hypocritical in a way. At the beginning of the show, when she learned about Shadow Garden, she was like, there's no way these people can be that strong. This has to be the work of artifacts. She herself is using something she disagreed with in the first place, with the artificial sword Doan left on the ground. But not only because of that, she hates the type of people who bring havoc to the kingdom when she herself is also doing that. When deciding to fight Shadow and going all out in the city, it's really interesting to see how she's losing her sense of reason and initial moralities just from Shadow having damaged her pride. Getting back to the earlier parts of the fight, I absolutely fucking loved the moment Sid pulled out those crowbars from that building he crashed into. And Iris's fucking reaction to him stopping the sword with the crowbar. The insane amount of fucking riz a man could have, Shadow-sama just does it all. Okay, enough of the fight now, let's talk about the Rose situation. First of all, the fucking sound design team. Again with the vocal effects, not only for Sid, but Alpha also. So when she was trying to recruit Rose for Shadow Garden. Which is pretty interesting with the path and risks that Rose is taking once she becomes a part of the Shadow Garden. There's not really much for me to say about the interaction of whether or not she wants to join Shadow Garden, so I'm gonna skip ahead and talk about once she gets to the Shadow Garden base. I really liked the scene in the manga, also of how she was recruited. I don't fully remember it since I read it a while ago. But this went out way differently than how I first saw it. Rose has developed throughout this arc, from attacking Doam to gaining power from Shadow, to be able to keep her chin up and face her enemies, but with the path Rose wants to take now, she has to sacrifice her entire past life just to take this new path in life, but also having to give up her identity and now being labeled as 666. This really gave her character 10 times more depth than she had already been given in the previous episodes. I remember some parts of how her being in Shadow Garden was in the manga, but I'm really curious to see how it goes in the anime whenever season 2 comes out and gets to that point. Not only in the anime though, I'm sure it's played out a little differently in the light novel also, but I would have to check out volume 3 sometime to know for sure. We really get to see more of that potential of Shuri becoming an antagonist like I mentioned in the last Eminence review I did. The fact she also had a bunch of Shadow or Shadow Garden wanted posters on her wall, they're really doing a great damn job fleshing out her hatred for Shadow. It's definitely not going to happen anytime soon and definitely not in the next season, but eventually down the line in the story she could become a critical threat for Sid. Given her knowledge and her potential skills, if put to use properly, she could find ways to disable Sid's magic and outsmart him. She could make it so the slime abilities and weaponry wouldn't work against her with some of those tricks she may have up her sleeve. And this is just a theory, but if she disables Sid's magic and the slime, she could also find out that Sid is actually Shadow, and then use that to her advantage to expose it to the world. At that point, both him and Shadow Garden would be in some really deep shit. They're about to form the whole United Nations to take down Shadow Garden at some point. I can kind of see it, not gonna lie. But yeah, it was nice seeing Shuri again, considering she doesn't appear in the source material ever since the end of Volume 1. One final thing I want to slide in, the voice acting. If it wasn't for the voice actors and the sound design team, and the energies Sid's VA emits, the show wouldn't be as good as it is. Without all these talents behind it, voice acting was a major part of what made the show so good for me. I'm really grateful for the main cast. Eminence in Shadow is a great series and one of the best isekai I've gotten to experience. With a really amazing anime adaptation with a passionate crew who cares about giving it the effort it deserves. Season 2 is on the way and hopefully we won't have to wait too long for it to air. Regardless, I will still miss this series, and Wednesdays will feel pretty empty from now on without it.